Welcome back to another AB Branch, your Sunday rendezvous with the hockey coach, Coach Francis directly for the beautiful country of Thailand. And we have to go all the way to Ottawa to find our co-host. Sit at home, ready to rock and roll. Marko LARABIE is in the house.
Hey, happy Sunday to everybody. Beautiful here, Coach. Nice and sunny. Ottawa was actually the warmest place in all of Canada this weekend. We're flirting with 20 degrees, so it's beautiful weekend. It's the end of the season. Great season with HABS Brunch, Coach. This is episode what? How many episodes did we do this season?
Yeah, this is episode number 29 on the program tonight, so that'd be great to talk about. Here's the subject of the day, ladies and gentlemen. We have the recap HABS season 2022-2023. Marko is going to go around everything, a little bit the resume of the season overall, the recap, but of course the resume of what happening last Friday, so the exit, right? We call this the exit post-season with its fun interview with players and the coaches and the general manager, Hugo, both of them. So Marko is going to review this. I have a couple of subjects to bring on the table for Marko too. And plus the people in the chat is going to add more subjects. So definitely going to have a rock and roll over 60 minutes. Then we'll be back tonight with in our tab for another program of the Montreal Canadiens. But what is more about what's next during the off-season for Hugo and what kind of decision Montreal could add or to good sacrifice, or they could trade, whatsoever. So there'll be a full day of Montreal Canadiens, because after that, Mr. Marko, we have to buckle up because it's going to be the NHL playoff 2023, and then the Hockey Coach Nation follow many series during the first round, so double header most of the time during the week. So it will be interesting. We have a lot of hockey's coming now. It may be the best season of the year. It's really the round number one with at least 4 games per night. A really interesting series going to talk about a little bit later if we have a time at the end of the show. So that's what we have on the program, Marko. So thanks to join us tonight for another 29th time of the year. And let's see what we have in the chat first of all, and see what they have. So let's further ado to welcome, of course, directly from Arizona. He's a breakfast morning, early morning, Mr. Marko. This is about maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. Larry Lavallee is in the house. So welcome back.
Thanks for joining, Larry.
The deal, the new deal, but we have the real deal, Marko, and Mr. Real Deal Prim is in the house.
Yes, sir.
Directement de la belle province de Québec, dans la région de Sherbrooke, il est de retour avec nous, Nicolas de Kobe-Bonneau. Welcome back, Nicolas.
Salut, Nicolas.
From Halifax, he is back with us. Rick Bengal and Demendra Bengal is in the house. Them his lunchtime for them is already maybe 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. So welcome back.
Happy Easter, Rick.
I have a question for Marko. Did everyone do the NHL bracket.com? If you want to join the Hockey Nation Live show, you can go to the NHL.com /bracket, and then looking for join the league. The name of the league is HABS Nation, so it's easy to remember. HABS Nation. You have no password. Click on it, join, and you can participate with us. We did a lot of people last season. Hopefully, we're going to have more this season. And we're going to follow up on the playoff, who's dominate. Alexandre Meilleur was the winner last year of the bracket for the HABS Nation. So we'll be interested what we get for this year. Of course, I didn't mind, but I'm not going to tell you yet what is my selection. We still have a couple of days before we decide.
Why don't you do it so early? There could be late-breaking information, I'm waiting until right before it starts, man, because you don't know who's going to play. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till Monday.
Well, I think the NHL give you until game number 2. So you have an extra day to look about this. I think I looked this morning. It was 3 days to go. So that's maybe the best to look at about that. So
I'm not going to wait till at least that's really cheating, waiting until there's already been games played. But I'll wait till right before the game starts.
Yeah, me too. That's going to start tomorrow night, by the way, so be careful. Everybody be ready. Monday night, November 17th. We have Gary Cournoyeur is in the house. Sorry about that. One of those would have an easy road to the Stanley Cup all the way my prediction that'll be possible for Edmonton Oilers. Happy Easter, all the Orthodox. Great Greek Easter today. Awesome to hear that, Rick. Glad to sharing this with us. And then we want to people from Thailand. Happy Thai with New Year here in Thailand. Completely here it's Sunday night, but it's finished. It was the 13 to 15. There was the 3 dates in Thailand, but we still have some kind of celebration around the country of Thailand. So we still have here on my area 18, 19, 20 or 3 dates. We're going to be a little bit a splash water everywhere. New videos coming maybe in the next 12 hours for me, but it's a warm up. So it's not the full parade, it's still a warm up. So I'm going to show to you a little bit later. William McClary, Mr. Top, Marco is in the house.
Coach, I was thinking that you were going to be wet when I saw you on camera today, but you look pretty dry.
Yeah, but really interesting to see that party everywhere. People are great. It's funny, I was carrying my camera on the phone, and people join me live, and have a guy from South Africa talk to. I asked him where he's going. I mean, I maybe did 3 to 4 interviews during the time I walk in the water, and then I got splashed everywhere. Was pretty amazing.
Did you ask them if they think the Leafs will pass the first round?
I'm sorry again?
Did you ask them if they thought the Leafs
No,
would
I
get
did not
past
talk about hockey. Unfortunately, we have to go that one over there. We should wear my jersey. Yeah. Imagine wearing my Montreal Canadiens jersey. It would be wet, soaking wet about that one. So, but I learned it the first time I did this weekend. It'll be ready a little bit better for the next one about. So, we have Mr. Andy Koivula directly for Edmonton in the house.
Empty. Good to see you, buddy.
And our friend Rob G is in the house, and Rob is a big fan of the New York Islanders.
G. Rob G.
Rick Benko asking me, I bet you cannot predict Toronto Maple Leafs. Rick, we know this one. I think you'll be fine. Claude Richard directement de Ottawa, the neighbor of Mr. Marco. Claude Richard, welcome back. Here we go, Mr. Marco. It's time to go around and talking about the Montreal Canadiens, and that's what we got today on the special recap season 2022-2023 Montreal Canadiens. That's what we got. I'll give you a little bit a stat, Mr. Marco, then you can talk about this. The record for this season versus last year. So they got 68 points versus 55. So they improved the number of the point by 13 points with all the injuries they got. That's pretty amazing. Firstly, they finished 8-8 on the season, and they was 28 this year compared to 32. On the statistically on the record, they are a little bit an improvement about that. But if you look about the goal again, goal for and goal again, you have about 14 more goals for full goal. Goal for, and they have a goal again, 10 goal less. So overall, that gave them a differential of plus 24. So that's pretty good overall. Percentage of special team, that's pretty much improvement a little bit more on the PK. On the power play, but the PK they dropped a little bit. Whatsoever, the league on power play was a little bit better this season compared last year overall. So that's the reason they are a little bit lower. Yeah, exactly about that. So
finished over 20%. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. So that gave you a little bit an idea what's going on around the record. So a little bit, not talking specific players, specific coach, but overall, maybe recap a little bit the season of Montreal Canadiens. We're going to pick up, guys, the chat after that. Welcome, everybody. And then if you have any questions, put in the little queue. Marco is going to answer to your question after that.
Yeah, so listen, like year over year, it was, in terms of wins and points, like, a definite improvement. I think with a healthy lineup, they probably would have overachieved compared to what we were thinking over the summer, right? Like, so if you look at, say, into November, at one point they were 2-3 points from a playoff spot, when they were fully healthy, still early in the season, and they did have kind of a more easy schedule, I would say, in October and November, but still, right? Like, it's very hard to quantify really kind of the performance of the team because of the injuries. Like, it's just impossible to really know where this team could have finished. One of the things that I found really interesting watching the coverage of the recap, last week, is a lot of the major channels, especially the francophone ones like TVA and everything. Like some of the analysts are just really, they were almost surprised and upset that that there wasn't a huge improvement this year, and they're very disappointed to hear that they're not going to be a playoff team next year. A surprise, I thought everybody was understanding that we're in a rebuild here, but overall, coach, in terms of performance, you're right, like a slight improvement on the PK power play. Martin St. Louis talked about it. Like they didn't really focus too much on the power play this year. I think they were just really more focused on 5-on-5 play, trying to really kind of put together a program there. And it's just impossible to really make any progress because you didn't really have the same players on the power play for any period of time, right? Like players just kept dropping, and so it's impossible to really kind of see any momentum with the power play. But I think you're bang on. Like to me, the most glaring thing from here is the goals against. Not seeing an improvement there is a bit of a problem. And I think it did get better. I'd say. I think remember there was that period of time where even Kent Hughes said, "Listen, like it's nice and everything, but we need to see a little bit more improvement." And I think there was a bit of powwow between management and St. Louis, and then you could see St. Louis started to really focus on playing in their own zone, and you did see a bit of an improvement there. So overall, listen, it's kind of what we thought, going into the season, but I think they probably would have overachieved, and there probably been a lot of pro tank Habs fans that would have not been very happy if we finished, say 24th or something like that. So in a way, these injuries were a blessing, and I'm sure we'll talk about injuries. It's probably the main story of the season, right? But
Yep.
in a way, these injuries were a huge blessing because it allowed us to finish a bit lower in the standings, and it allowed us to see a lot of young players that we likely wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Yeah, well said, well done for the recap of the Montreal Canadiens. I think for overall, you see an improvement, 13 points. I think that's pretty good for the Montreal Canadiens with everything happening during the year. You have to give credit. Unfortunately, some area of the game for me, special team is really where I'm a bit concerned overall. But you cannot blame them because with no personnel of the players, you cannot perform at what they should be. Always thinking, when you recap the season, you're thinking about, okay, imagine if, I don't know, 7 of them, maybe 8 of them, because at some point at 13 players, but maybe 6 of them play full year, 82 game. I'm talking about Monahan with, Caulfield, and what it would be the equation. I'm pretty sure they will not be in the top 5. I predict it would be about 7, 8. And they could add another 7, 8 more points in the standing for the Montreal Canadiens. At that point, they would battle more with the Arizona, past maybe Flowers and Arizona. And we talk about possible 25th or 26th for them. So, it's hard to see if, right? But at the end of the day, we have to give credit for what they accomplished this year as what they got in front of them for Martin St. Louis. But before we move on, we have a couple of people knock the door. So thanks so much, everybody, to be with us this morning. I'm talking about, first of all, we have Nick Larivière. Mr. Marko is in the house. He asked you, do you think the Montreal Canadiens will trade the Florida pick for another young guy as example, like Kirby Dach?
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are gonna. And coach, by the way, if you want, I might be able to join tonight too, if you guys want me. But you guys are gonna cover this tonight. But based on what we heard in the press conference, that's absolutely the plan, right? Is be aggressive at the draft and try to accelerate the plan by trying to do another Kirby Dach like trade. To me, there's no way that they're trading their first round or their first pick, obviously. But definitely that Florida pick could absolutely be in play. But the problem is that the market might not be as good as we think because there's a lot of other teams that are also interested in trading their first round pick. So the market might be a bit saturated. So I'm not sure, I would manage people's expectations there. But, anything could happen. And if Hughes is aggressive and, is able to find it, then for sure, like it could absolutely happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. Mr. N. Rabinoff is in the house talking about McDavid and McKinnon. Rick Bengal talk possible a surprise in the playoff. Who you think would be the upset round number one? He think the Seattle, Colorado. That's great shit. Cody Bengal is in the house. Welcome back, Mr. Cody. Happy Sunday morning. Thanks to join us. Claude Richard comment, like you said, the power play was good with Anderson. About this. Cole, did you watch the youth Golden Media event? Man, both of them are super smart guys. I don't see how the app don't become a contender in the next 5 years. Really well said. And Marco is going to talk about this happening during that conference. Chicago Bear knocked the door. Welcome back, Mr. Nick. Thanks to be with us about with us this morning. I'll go to the one with the fourth game. I would like to come back for a show sometime as well. Nick, you will be welcome. If we continue, we're going to definitely having you aboard at some point. So thanks to give us your time with us. So definitely reach you the next couple of days. And right now, Joshua is putting up a better the number in the playoff. Like maybe a pre-draft show. That'd be awesome, Nick. We take a note about this. Definitely, Nick is going to, Marco is going to reach you. Chris Hansen is in the house. I really depth draft. Yep, sorry. As maybe looking at the Devils Alexandre Halls for the potential trade. Gary said about this. Meilleur pointeur de playoffs cette année. Josh looking great yesterday. Presentement with an 18 point and 6 game for Joshua Wet. He have an amazing, great run so far. So, Marco, we do at the end at some point. We do always stand out. Of the Montreal Canadiens for the what I can mean the review week, everything like that. I'm really not to give you because tonight I'm going to go with surprise, disappointment, everything like that. But maybe one player specific that stood out. It could be a surprise, could be a player where you don't expect. Maybe a management, could be a coach, could be anything. If you have one area, it could be a power play, could be a defenseman, it could be whatever it is. Was something really stood out your eyes? Was your expectation maybe was not at the beginning, and then at the end they did pretty good?
Well, I might, there's some really obvious ones, right? So I won't pick those and try to make it a bit interesting. To me, and I did reference him a couple times throughout the year, but to me, I think Savard was like a good choice for the Jacques Beauchamp award of the player that goes under the radar. But for me, the person that goes under the radar the most in the whole organization for this season is Stéphane Robida. Not a lot of people talk about him. Like all the glory goes to Martin Saint-Louis, and with good reason. Like he's amazing, and he's like a magician and like a philosopher, and he's so easy to and we see him every day, right? Like he's the face of talking to the media every day, but based on the fact that we had 5 rookie defensemen in the lineup all season, and with how well that they did, and how he was, needing to kind of shuffle, pairs all year and everything. Like to me, he's somebody that goes really underrated, and somebody that I would want to give a shout out for, because to me that is one of the stories of the season, right? Is the development and the opportunity that those young defensemen got, and the development of those young defensemen, including somebody that we got on waivers, Kovacevic, right? So it's probably not the first person that people would think of. Like, obviously you think of Montalbo was probably the most obvious one. Jacky at the beginning of the season. Like there's so many good stories, players that stood out that surprised in a positive way. But to me, I really want, because most of the players that stood out and surprised were defensemen, then to me, a lot of credit has to go to Stéphane Robida.
That's a great point. I think, if you think about the whatsoever the goal, again, I think overall with all the personnel of the player that he has under his wing at the beginning of the year until to the end, is rare. You can said one game he have everybody to play hockey. It did not have it did not happen a lot. I'm talking about Emerson, Madison, Savard, the 3 piliers, the 3 big D for the Montreal Canadiens, following by other players, a rookie like Cody with Jacky, Harris, Kovacevic. It's been rare for that one. So yeah,
I don't think it's ever happened in NHL history to have 5 rookie. I think it's literally history. That's never happened before. So
You're absolutely right about this, at least for the Montreal Canadiens for sure, and then around the
Yeah,
NHL too. So that's pretty much
yeah,
what he did. For me, I have different personnel of the players. He can go different direction. I think you can say that. But if you said at the beginning of the year, when you do your expectation, how many goals he can do, what he can do during the season, everything like this, you consider that. You have different players I can mention, but I would have to go with Samuel Montembeault for me because he go from nowhere, in my opinion. Um,
mm,
I don't know. I never thought he's going to be like he did this season. Performance or whatever is a little bit under the 500, but the way he did all year long for the Montreal Canadiens is maybe the most shocking for me. You can talk about David Savard, maybe Jacky, or a couple of players like this, but for what Montembeault did from October until the end of the year with the
yeah,
goal again, save expectation, everything, the GSVA. You have to recognize his performance overall. For me, it's about expectation, right? At the beginning of the year, what is happening. For me, that's what stood out more. You can't find other, my opinion,
yeah,
like you also can be other fans, would be the right. It just depends how you see that. But for me, Samuel
yeah,
Montembeault, he was really the player for me. Was wow, this was he came
yeah,
from nowhere. The potential he showed up to us this year is more what my expectation. And you don't know yet, right? We know now uh, the the floor, but we don't know yet the ceiling. I think you have another step we maybe don't know yet about Samuel Montembeault, and he will definitely get this kind of confidence about this. And if you think about this, the salary cap guys are the Montreal Canadiens as a goaltender. Only
yeah,
with Allen and Samuel Montembeault, it was $3.8 million. So under $4 million for two goaltender. I
yeah,
think you did. People can complain, blame about Jake Allen, but I think he played with many injuries again, obviously for him. But Montembeault is really the stood out player. So I don't know the people in the chat have some fun player, but this is my
yeah.
pick on that one.
Yeah, I think in terms of consistency throughout the whole season, I think you're bang on. It would have been a more interesting conversation if some of the other players that were kind of in that discussion would have stayed healthy. Like for me, Kirby Doc was a revelation this year as well. And if he would have stayed healthy, like his progression, especially when they moved him at center, like there was that nice period where they had him with Caulfield and Suzuki and kind of opened all of our eyes. But then when he went to center, like you could see like a switch went off in his mind, and he was carrying the other players, and just you could see he went to a totally different level. So if he would have stayed healthy, I would have been very curious to see where he would have taken his game this season. And to me, he's probably my favorite player on the Montreal Canadiens now. Like I just love the way that he plays. Right, so very very encouraging there. And it would have been interesting to see what Jacky would have done for the whole season as well. Without that injury, would if he continued to progress and become a little bit more disciplined around the ice as well, and continue to bring everything that he brings. So it all comes back to injuries again, coach. But I think you're right. Like Montembeault for sure is kind of the story of the season, because he's at least established himself as an NHL goaltender. The next step now is, so on average, over the last two seasons, he's played around 40 games. I think it was like 38 and 39 games. In 2021, it was kind of forced on him. Like it was just kind of a circumstance. He was a victim of it almost. Like they had to play him because of injuries. But this year he earned all those starts, right? So it's very different. Next year, can he play 55 games? Now you're kind of getting into, if he can, to me, the minimal to really be successful in the NHL, you want your number one goaltender to have at least a 910 save percentage and play 55 games. 60 games would be nice. If you have a 910 goalie playing 55 games, then you're in business, right? Because then you can have a good backup that's going to come in and platoon with him. And so let's see if he can amp up, play another 10, 15 games, and be right at the level that he was, between 905 and 910 save percentage. It'll be good.
You're absolutely right. I think it's good for Montreal to have a guy, a goalie like him on the transition for what they want to become as a rebuilding. I think that's good to see Montembeault make this happen for Montreal Canadiens. Possible now next year I'm going to see again, maybe now to open the door, maybe possible to trade Jake Allen and see what they at that year, so they can consider maybe Montembeault at that way. So
now you're opening up another sore subject for me. I think we talked about this with Enertap like a couple weeks ago. Like in retrospect, it looks worse and worse. Like I still second guess, why did they have to re-sign Allen at in the summer last year? What was the rush? Now he's got another 2 years. Like I don't know if there's a lot of teams that can fit. How much is he making? 3.8 or something like that?
it's
Like
going to be
just under.
$3.8 million. I think that's pretty good about that. So every team try to get under $8 million, about $8 to $9 million. So you have a goaltender at $5 million, example, as a goaltender number one. So you have a backup like Jake Allen. I think you consider Jake Allen the top 5 goaltender number 2 in NHL, not number 1. That's another subject, we'll be sure, but to expect that and to be under $4 million, that's pretty much on the great standard for the NHL about that. If you consider many goaltender number 2, you're going to see Jake Allen is going to be the top 5 for them. So they have another card on your hand. They can do something in the next 12 months to 18 months. We'll see what they're going to develop that. So let's move on with the people in the chat. We have Chris Ensign and Jerry from Sweden is in the house. Thanks so much for your answer. I see some people talk about Roy, Enneman, and Becker. Some people about Jekai. WST talk about he believe he would like to have a Quebecois players draft. Jekai, welcome back, by the way. For that one, Element and Beck are not ready, in my opinion. We need some time in Laval and Rabinaf about this one. And Madison for Jerry about the players. Element maybe make it last year if he's not injured. A bit concerned about Beck. He has no start out since going to Peterborough. Unfortunately for Rick. And Rick a little bit right about this. Like the team, Rick. Peterborough did not reach the same expectation. Still have a good team over there, but would be interesting he's going to do on the offer. I was about to say either Kovacevic or Engstrom for Nicholas. Chris Ensign, the element is ready. About the element is right now. The stand out. The key about the element is CCO. He's going to react this part, and I always felt for me, Marco, and I know you are. I'm pretty sure like. Successful player or the success of the one player, I have to wait a little bit longer. Whatever you have a good period, about 10 game, 11 game, 15 game, 20 game, that's one set. Like how he continues to do this for the full year, I'm not sure about that though. And then we have to have a really good main cam about this. The good news, he could be the same path with Jesse Allen. Now he does not have to return in Sweden next year. So worst case, you can see him in Laval at the beginning of the year, a little bit like Justin Barron. I think he could be the same path like Barron, and he can start there. It's not like a backwards, but he can stop up at the Laval and make maybe in October, then join the team in November. We're still happening there. So, but one player can make the playoff next year. The roster could be an element for sure. For people in that chat, Chris, like you mentioned to you about that one there. Eternal Render is in the house. Welcome back, Eternal. Thanks to be without. They talk about Primo. Wasson to be like a lock, make the club next season. And Rabinov again. Another big step, right? From the QM to jumping NHL. We have to see about this. But Roy and Beck, for me, are the 2 players right now. They are in the front of the rookies prospect. We'll call it the prospect and not the rookies. Could have a spot with the Montreal Canadiens by the time we tell us on the training main game for sure. Did you hear what Grant McCann said about the Russian players, where the government want to prevent their players from leaving the country? Yeah, we heard about that one over there, but would be... everything could change the next day to next day, so I will wait about that. He predict the round number 4, number 5 for Michkov. I don't predict. I would be completely. I don't know why he said that round number 4. I did not read what he said anyway, so I don't want to judge what he said. I did not read the reason he said that. The only thing, if he predict round 4 and 5, I think he's going to be wrong.
Yeah, I think so. Russia just instituted a new system where they'll be able to draft people electronically before they would have to actually find you in person and give you like a piece of paper or something like that. So now they're going to make it even easier to draft people into the military. So I think that's what it is. Like there's a war, right? So it's hard to say how that's going to happen. So I can see why teams would be nervous, but again, it's Michkov. He's I think it will affect other Russian players more than it will affect Michkov.
Yeah, absolutely about this. Giro Lam is a doubt. Ask you this question for you. Any news for the Cole Caulfield injury? Anything you want to add about that?
Well, like based on his interview in the locker cleaning round that they did, like looks like it's on track. Like they were joke. Remember at the beginning of his injury, management was hiding sticks from him because the longest that he'd ever kind of been without being on the ice was like a day in his whole life. Since he's been a kid. So they let him have sticks again. At least he can kind of play around a little bit. So it looks like it's on track. He's not spending the summer in Montreal. He's going back home to Wisconsin. So we imagine he's going to have a team with him here. He'll probably come back to Montreal a couple times to follow up with team therapists and everything. But he'll be working on it this summer, and it looks like everything's on track, and he should be ready for training camp.
Well said about the update on the Cole Caulfield. Rick is he already surmountable Cole Dundon #1 in initial last October, so that's great to see that. Christian says Baron Doc most improved, and then we have Michael Pesada shootout goal of the year for Edernal. Chris, I agree. Baron was bad in Laval. He turned it around. Nicholas is in the house. Dak got such a high potential, minimum second line in the. What I think a very fun player to follow in the future for Kirby Dak. And maybe you can add something about Kirby Dak if you don't mind.
Oh man, I could talk about Kirby Dak for hours. Like he's he's just so complete of a player, right? Like to me, the most impressive thing, it's something that we sorely lacked on the team, is his ability. Like when he goes into the corners, I don't think I've ever watched a player when he goes into the corner. I'm so confident that he'll come out with the puck. It's unreal. Like he'll go into the corner. I've joked around about this before. Like he's like an octopus, right? Like he's so tall and lanky, but he's so shifty too. Like he's got his tentacles out, and he's like kind of moving the puck in between his legs, and it's not just his size, right? Like we've talked about this before, Coach, about RHP is like this, Doc is like this. There's certain players that are it's not just heart and hunger to try to win the puck in the corner, but it's also skill. You can teach that. And that's why I was always a little bit critical of Drouin. Like, like those are skills that you can learn, how to properly position yourself in the corner behind a player and how to lift their stick and get the right positioning. Like those are things you can teach. Doc just has that instinctively, right? So you combine the size, his ability to win those battles, his vision. He's deceptively fast for a big man, like deceptively fast. And probably, one thing I'd like to see him shoot the puck a bit more, right? But like for me, all day he's a center. I would definitely debate you if for people who don't think he's a center, it just comes down to face-offs, right? So that's also something that's coachable and trainable. To me, if he's able to win puck battles in the corner by timing, how to lift somebody's stick and position his body, like to me, that's how you win faceoffs too, right? So those are what we would call transferable skills. So he's got to transfer his skills that he uses so well by winning puck battles into the faceoff dot. And once he does that, then he's going to be, for sure, I think he's going to challenge Suzuki as potentially it depends how they use him, right? But to me, I see his potential right there with Suzuki. It's not a huge gap, in my opinion.
Well said about that one for sure. Jambon et Patate is in the house. That's a great name for the brunch at the Sunday morning. So this is the best way to do that for that one. Where people talk about this, Roy is on fire. I'm pretty sure Marco beat me as a kid for game 6 stitches with my friend Alex in the 6 foot of it. Trade Allen rebuild still in progress. Rick, good point about Mountain Bowl. Peterborough visits Ottawa today. The roofing for the Peterborough Petes. I think where is finished and descending is where I expect the AB finish. The AB are not the worst team in the league for sure about this. I predict at the beginning, Marco, me was 29. So I think the only team I was wrong was the Columbus Blue Jacket. I was wrong at the bottom of the NHL.
I think I had them at 26 or 27. So
yeah,
that was pretty close.
So that's what we got about this. On arrive for Laval getting that. Nick Laurent, I think a year and again would be awesome for Joshua Roy. I think it'd be good about this. About it was a bit all season. I don't think the app signed FA or signed anyone giving the rookie a chance to make a big club. Everything. The late warrior of the year was without a doubt. What team is signed to win, or does he end up in Switzerland? That'll be a great question for sure. To see what Jonathan Drouin did, said it will be no recent draft and the first one. Too much risk for Gary Cournoyer about the Grand McCann situation. And then Miguel is already wrong. Don't take him too seriously. Trugan for I try to get you something. Gary talk about Dak. Only man like to be targeting the second and first one. Who will they keep? And if Mailloux is ready, should Montreal get right of Edmondson? So who will they keep it? Who will they keep if Mailloux is ready to Montreal? Do you think they would take Joel Edmondson?
Yeah, to me that's a no-brainer. Like I think they would have traded him at the deadline if he was relatively healthy. There were teams that were interested. So to me, absolutely. But to me, that's like a fait accompli. Like Joel Edmondson, in my opinion, has played his last game as a Montreal Canadien. It would take something very strange for him to still be there next year. I just don't see how it can happen.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that.
Just happened. Even if you move him, though, like I don't know if that creates enough room, for Mailloux. Like, we can debate whether Mailloux will be on the team next year. But that's a whole other question. But assuming he has an amazing camp and they want to get him there, like there's still way too many bodies, right? Like you've got too many defensemen. It's and you have many coming up, right? Like Hudson's going to be here in like 2 years, right? So, I've said this before. Like if you're gonna we had this debate all year, Coach, about Matheson, right? So, I don't think Matheson is going to have a higher level of value than he does right now. So, but he's very valuable to Montreal, right? So, I won't be mad if they keep Matheson. Like he's on a good deal. He wants to be there. He's fun to watch. He's a little, kind of bit of a liability in his end time to time, but overall, what he brings is more positive than negative. So. Okay, so we agree we keep Matheson. Well, for me, that means that you can't keep Harris. To me, it's between Harris and Matheson. You can't really have both. But again, you could have million injuries again next year, and you might need all those guys. But in theory, you look at seasons that you had Trudeau in Laval, right? Like he had an amazing season in Laval. You've got Baudin in Laval. You're gonna have all the there's Struble. And by the way, like, did you watch the Laval game? Like Struble, wow. He played a really, really great game there against the Crunch.
But they have also Armstrong for the Sweden. I think Armstrong is in front of Trudeau, in my opinion. That will be open up there. So I think now they have an opportunity to don't rush anybody in initial. In my opinion, that's what they have to do. They learn something maybe from Sarkowski, but otherwise they don't have to rush anybody. They have now players like they can keep in the team, and they don't set to bring Mailloux or Trudeau yet. Another full year for Trudeau to be a top 3 in American Hockey League that we're helping him. And I think that's the path they should do in the future. Compared last season, they have no choice. You have nobody in front of them, so they bring what they could get around, so they can play around now better because the improvement of Byron example, there's a great example. I think the improvement for Jacky and Harris at the end with Cooley right there, the 3 other. And then Kovacevic, we don't mention yet his name, where he's really been one of good, solid warrior for the Montreal Canadiens, played the most game for as a defenseman. So why to push Mailloux?
I was mentioning we're all on the left, right? So to me, Kovacevic, like you're right, like he's the unmentioned guy, but how do you not have him in the unless he has a really terrible camp? For me, he's a lock on your at least bottom pair as your right-handed defenseman next year, like without question. Like he definitely earned that spot. So the reason I mentioned all those other guys is they're left-handed defensemen, right? So we have a surplus of left-handed defensemen. To me, the odd man out, I think, is Harris.
Yeah, I'm sorry about this one over there. A lot of people talk about Mailloux situation, play more about this. Christensen think about more Yager, Devoski, but Crystal are ranked around 15 for Christensen. I don't know if you talk about the Florida Panthers pick. I think Montreal Canadiens will be surprised, like at number, suppose you get 17, 18, 19, right? They have a choice maybe to take Aiden Gauthier for the Sherbrooke Phoenix. I don't say they have to, but it would depend always on the leaderboard. But yeah, Gauthier at the beginning was about 10 to 12 at the October. Now he become more at the middle of the higher on the second half for the first round, right? But it will be depend on the leaderboard what is going to be open. But Aiden Gauthier could be a consideration at some point for the Montreal Canadiens. I want Mailloux to make the big team eventually. He has all the tools, obviously. Yeah. I just take a bit longer about this one because I got the information from the Russian newspaper. He predicted Meshkov got beat in your on the first one, got beat in your for the first round. Laval will be a powerhouse next season. Gary Cournoyer, if he had possible, nobody pick a number on first round. Use failed to impress me. Jabon, some conflict. Use failed to impress me. I don't know why use Jambon on which one you're talking about. What you think? I would not touch a Michkov with a first for WST. Savoir is Baron. Good morning, Mr. Russell Smith is in the house, Mr. Marco. So we get him. Can pick up him as something with a Florida pick for Michkov. Everything could possible. That they don't use the second one to take a Mishkov. On my defense, I would want Savard or on each pairing to BST. Harris wore a blue shot for his team profile photo, Rick symbolic. Sorry to Harris, he may be young with potential, but Madison offensive side and experience is something Ab should keep. Let Armstrong P and SL next year and send the Laval. That kid can be very good for Nicholas. One thing, Nicholas, I would say to you, the player from Sweden or those coming back a draft by any team in NHL, they have usually, Marco, stay one more extra year in the Sweden area. And not before they come. They have rare player like Allen did it for the Montreal Canadiens, but it's rare. Most of them play one more year. Animan did it last year, and Norlander did it the year before that, and I can go all the way like that for that. So that's what we got around Mr. Marco. We are 45, and we did not go through nowhere because a great comment for the people in the chat, a great question for everybody. Keep pushing, guys, the conversation in the chat. They're great. Thanks so much, every one of you two guys, to join the HABS Brunch your Sunday rendezvous. We really appreciate it. Zeb Lacab is in the house. The resume Hugo press conference, honestly, can use and Jeff Gordon. That would be the biggest thing happening last Friday after they have the exit for H players. I will resume this, Mr. Marco, here, and you can go from anyone. You get that one. So the draft for the Montreal Canadiens, the UFA, the contract, the mid-scout staff, that was really where they was talking about this and more a subject, but I will just give you an idea about that contract. I'm talking about RHP, Cole Caulfield example, what happened with Kuryanov, what happening with Monahan example. The UFA, he's not want to get any player over 28, so that's the direction he can get. On the draft, of course, the number 5, if possible, 17 for the Florida Panthers. Finally, the biggest question was more about the medical staff, what it was a concern for you all year long about that. So, to go one direction, you can go anywhere, and we welcome back Zev Lecab in the house. So thanks so much for everyone about this. So here we go.
It wouldn't be HABS brunch without Zeph on the chat chirping me. So welcome, Zeph. That's good. So, listen, I think we did learn a couple of interesting things in the presser. So first and foremost, I think the takeaway is, by the way, Jeff Gordon is hilarious. He's definitely a guy that would be so fun to hang out with and have a beer because he seems like a super funny guy. He was hilarious during the whole press conference. But, I was really glad to see that. And you could see the media has been waiting all year to ask questions to these guys about all the injuries and how they were managed. So good job on the Montreal media to ask them these kind of tough questions. And it's clear that it's on their radar for sure. To me, I would want to refocus the question. It's not necessarily a problem with the medical staff. I'm sure the medical staff is very competent. They're able to, there are a couple times where they mentioned like they didn't even do an MRI when a player had a broken ankle or a broken foot. But again, it comes down to it sounds like the players, like the two most interesting interviews for sure were Gallagher and Monahan. Both of them admitting basically that, yeah, you know what, like I pretty much had bad judgment this year, and I should have, I should have maybe made a different decision. Gallagher broke his ankle, didn't really report it to the medical staff, that he wasn't feeling very good. He thought he could just play through it, and played on a broken ankle for like a month. Took a month off and then broke it again. Monahan, I think, coach, we were debating this. Remember, like we were, the Chinese spy balloon, like where's Monahan? Not that, but we were guessing, but it's exactly what we thought, right? Like, so he broke his foot, and yes, some players have historically. Martin Saint-Louis himself said, "Yeah, I've played on a broken foot before." But when you're a guy that just had hip surgery and your body is a little bit misaligned, and you're compensating because you're not skating on that foot, then, like, to me, the biggest takeaway is not the problem with the medical staff. The problem is with the process that they have within the organization. So, coach, remember you were a little bit critical about how, it's kind of, I feel weird. It's, Sean Farrell gets to play his game, like, and all that. Like, I think players are, it wouldn't be like that way before, that a player would be able to dictate terms like that. To me, what I find even more shocking is that players are making decisions about playing even though they're injured. I get it. They're warriors, and during the playoffs, that makes absolute sense. And there's a lot of value. And that's why there's tons of YouTube videos about people, doing reaction videos to hockey players playing through injuries. Like, it's miraculous. We love hockey players because they're tough and they're dedicated to the team. But at some point, the team itself has to protect the player from themselves. Not only that, but think of what's best for the organization. Let's not lie. Like, by letting Monahan make the decision to play in Calgary with that broken foot, the Montreal Canadiens arguably cost themselves a first-round draft pick, potentially, right? And so that's a huge problem. Like, I get it. Like, you want to empower the players and all that, but at some point, to me, the flaw in the process is that the players are the ones making the final decision. Yes, they should be consulted and they should have a vote in the process. But if I'm an employer, and that's what the Canadiens are, they employ these teams, right? So let's say somebody is very sick or they have an injury at work. Well, and they're on a leave because they've been injured or something like that. Well, the employer has the obligation to make sure that they're going to make sure that the employee is not going to harm themselves or the organization or other people by coming back to work too early, right? So I'm not trying to compare it to a workplace. I know it's a very different thing. But to me, it seems very weird that the players are making the final decision, right? So I'm very encouraged that they're going to take a deep dive on this. I'm not trying to take away the fact that hockey players are warriors. I get it, but keep it for the playoffs. Keep it for a year that matters, where you're actually going to be competing to make the playoffs. Like, to me, it almost sounded selfish, especially the Monahan one, right? Like, it was kind of a selfish thing. He wanted to play in front of his fans, his former fans in Calgary, and he jeopardized his entire season. So I'm really glad that they identified that, and I hope that changes for next year. But it's tricky, right? Like, it's the hockey culture, I get it. But so that was a very interesting thing to me. Those were the most interesting interviews from the players, was Monahan and Gallagher, right? So that was very interesting. So in the Hugo, kind of interview, some really nice tidbits there. So what we did learn, I think you're right, Coach, like, Hughes is not going to be going hunting for big game here in the free agent market. And I, for one, totally agree with that. It's not the time to do that at all. Unless it makes sense and it's kind of like a short-term thing to help. But it's not going to, like, I think his exact words is, we're not going to do anything that's going to tie up the organization long-term. So are they potentially looking at re-signing a Monahan? Maybe, if it's like a year or two at the right price, maybe that makes sense. And if it's a low risk, then maybe that's something that they look at doing. But I was encouraged to hear, really it comes down to this, right? Like, the thing that I loved about the press conference too is Hughes. It was very interesting, right? Like, one of the first things he said is, the thing that we focused on in the exit interviews with the players was talking about accountability, meaning, okay, so, we've had fun here the last year. There wasn't a lot of pressure on results. We didn't have the standings in the dressing room and things like that. But guys, that's going to change next year. Expectations are raising next year. And I thought that was critical, right? Because you can't have what happened this year continue to happen year after year after year, because then you're just creating a culture where they're not going to be able to respond or work in an environment where there's actual expectations there, right? So I think he did a really good job laying that out, that, okay, guys, we are expecting that the expectations are going to be higher this year. Does that mean that we're going to, that we have to make the playoffs? No, but we're not going to go into the year thinking that playoffs are impossible. Our objective is to make the playoffs next year, right? And then Gordon was a little careful, kind of saying, well, fans still need to be patient, but yeah, we're not going into the playoffs thinking that the next season thinking the playoffs are impossible. One of the most interesting things, Coach, I saw, okay, is, again, watching the coverage on other networks like TVA and RDS, is one thing that I realized is that overall this year, we've said that, overall the fans have been pretty open to this rebuild, right? But what's interesting, and we see that here, right? Like in terms of how many people are tuning in to watch our shows. But overall, the amount of viewers watching dropped by 50% this year. 50% less TV viewers for Montreal Canadiens games last year. So when you can see that, like, a lot of the personalities and a lot of the networks, they don't want this rebuild to last super long, right? Because they see the impact that it has on viewers, right? Because hardcore Habs fans are going to watch the whole process. Like, people that are with us right now, they're going to watch because they want to see the process. They're dedicated, right? But that other 50%, they're not against it, but they're not going to watch it as much.
Can I stop you and ask a question about that? Is it possible, Marco, if you think about this, like, you have many people in the chat, you and me, we are really deep about hockey, right? We love the game and we learn and we try to figure out all the news, anything like that. The most of the fans, the viewers, watch the game because they like the Montreal Canadiens, right? And they attach the passion of the game or the team with some specific players. The Cole Caulfield, the Sakoski. They want to be curious about him. They want to see Jacky over there. But if you calculate all of this, it could be that after that. And then, so every one of them disappear at some point during the year. And they lost maybe the interest to follow the team anymore. This is just pop up in my head, so I just bring this. Is it the thing is a percentage of the people don't watch anymore? Because I see in the chat, not the chat, but my viewers, when I do the play-by-play a game with a Columbus or whatever they are, I don't have anybody compared like he was the Boston Bruins at the Toronto, where the match don't have no importance anymore anyway at the half of the season.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, you're always going to see fluctuations. Like, Habs Leafs on a Saturday night, you're going to get more viewers, right? But just on average, the amount of viewers, like, did that impact certain people start following less when Caulfield got injured? Maybe, right? But overall, the numbers don't lie, right? Like, it's not the first time this happens. I think I mentioned in the chat like last week that Brian Wild, who's used to be the global reporter, and then you had Grant McCagg. Originally they started a new website. It was actually Recruits, which is the same one that Grant McCagg has, but they started this whole thing, and they started in the worst year possible. It's the year that they tanked and ended up drafting Kotkaniemi. Now, that worked out well for Grant McCagg because he ended up predicting that pick, and he kind of got famous for it a little bit. But overall, like, they weren't able to get as many subscriptions and all that because of that's just the reality of it, right? So, so for hardcore fans, like, we understand what this process is, right? Like, they're not going to rush if they can, like we talked about earlier, if they can get a Kirby Dach type trade that speeds things up by 2-3 years by adding a young player that's almost ready to play, they will. But otherwise, so to me, what's interesting is seeing they're saying all the right things. I aligned 100% with what they were saying. They're going to try to be aggressive at the draft if they can. Like we talked about, guys, like last year, the last draft was probably the most exciting draft I've ever seen in my life as a Habs fan. Would we love for something like that to happen again? You know, like Gary Bettman announcing a trade. Is that a once in a lifetime thing? You know, like Brian Burke trading down to get the Sedins together. Like, you don't see that every year, right? So we hope that something like that will happen, and we hope that they'll maybe be able to flip the Florida pick for something. I just wouldn't bank on it, guys. You know, it would be great if it happens, but they'll try, right? So they're going to continue the plan. I completely agree with kind of what they're doing here. I like that they're elevating the standards just enough to make sure that the players are not going to get complacent in what they do. You know, like I think that's really important, right? Because you saw St. Louis at the end of the year, coach, like he was ready to go home. You know, like that's for a guy who loves to win. I don't know how many years St. Louis can go through this. So, you know, I know you guys are going to be talking about what's coming up next and maybe, you know, next year. You know, I love that I love the mindset for next year's. Okay, we don't expect to make the playoffs, but we don't expect not to make the playoffs. And we're going to try to make the playoffs. We definitely want to see improvement. So finishing 24th or 22nd or something like that.
Yeah, great point. Great point you bring on the table here. We have a few people knock the door. We welcome everybody. Don't forget, guys, to click on the like. A lot of subject in the chat. You sharing, every one of you. So that's a great one about this for sure. I think for me, when you resume what you just said, everything like that, I think Montreal Canadiens, where we can use it, and Jeff Gordon, if they have a problem, they're going to fix it. If they see something does not work, they're going to fix it. So the medical staff, whatever happening, they're going to figure out this, and they try to figure out what was the best for the Montreal Canadiens. At the same time, some realize now they have to be a little bit more concerned about the injury, so they have to figure out what they should do, what they not should at some point. So that's a big case why we said to you maybe Gallagher and then Monahan when they express the injuries during the year, and that's something happening for that one. So that's something great. The NHL draft, possible use if we have a chance to trade for the second pick for the Florida Panthers, they will consider that one to get a better. I'm sure they consider. The one thing I think, Marco, they open up $19.5 million on the salary cap. So this year, they was stuck with different contract. The Weber contract example, they gave away on that one. They trade for that enough and money to get those kind of the flexibility of the asset. Now they gave away now that they losing to Rouen and everybody. Now they have a chance now to make a little bit more space, make more step forward for the next what they can do for the rebuilding over there. And at the end of the day, they will try to trade maybe Edmondson at 3.4, maybe an Army at 3.4, possible Hoffman at 4.5. They will try to open up a little bit more the circuit. That will be the biggest challenge for them.
Fingers crossed on the last one for sure. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Coach. Like Hughes did say, like he wants to weaponize the cap space that they're going to have. So if you're like, it's the Montreal Canadiens. Remember that I think it was like in the 5th year of the Bergevin era where we had like $5 or $8 million in cap space. You're not allowed to do that in Montreal. Use all your cap space. I agree. Don't go sign free agents just to use your cap space and then screw the team in the future. But if you have this cap space, you have to weaponize it, and you have to use it to your advantage in creating other assets. So maybe that's a good show for the summer, Coach, is figure out what targets, what teams are going to be in cap hell and would be a good partner for Montreal to bail out and get some assets for. That'll be a good.
Absolutely. About that, a great subject in the chat about Sakaski. Then they talk about Gallagher, the contract, everything like that. The only thing I would say for everybody in the chat, everything have a bad contract, a minimum of one of them. So it's not, it is what it is. And they try to deal about that. And they try to go around that. There nothing they can do about Gallagher, about the contract, unfortunately. That's part of the management. When you rebuild, you try to figure out those kind of contract. And that's happening on each team. So that's the reason why Gallagher is stuck with them for the next couple of years. Obviously, they cannot go nowhere. I want to finish is 11:02, so I want to give you a little bit more, give us a little bit of perspective of what an overview of Martin Saint-Louis And then for the player, we have Suzuki, Montembeault, and other player we have for the subject who can maybe keep this, and then maybe the next couple of weeks come back to hear you like a little bit the transition, what's going on with Montreal Canadiens, and then possible the playoff at some point, Marco.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, like I mentioned, it's a little unusual. St. Louis did his recap at the end of the game. Like I think he went home right after the end of the game, right? So, not that the coach is always the main focus on the locker cleanout day, but I don't think I've ever seen it where the coach actually left town the day before. But I'm not being critical of him. It was a tough year, for a winner like him to kind of go through it, but he handled it like an absolute champion, right? Like, there's not very much, like, again, like we probably the only criticism we had this year, coach, is, the thing we love about him, right? Like that he was coaching to win too much, right? Like, sometimes we wish that maybe he would, kind of not overplay Suzuki so much. Like, he's like 22, 23 minutes, and we saw Matheson play like 27 minutes or game or something like that down the stretch. So, but again, that's his nature. You can't change that. He's going to play to win. It's just the instincts. So overall, like I said, I gave a major shout out to Rabida because of the impact that he had on the young decor this year. So the whole coaching staff, they seem to get amazing marks in the exit interviews that all the players did with Hugo. All of them were like head over heels happy with the job that the coaching staff this year, not just St. Louis, but the whole team, right? So to me, this was a really, really amazing opportunity for St. Louis because, he got to experience things that not many coaches get to experience, right? Like if you think of it like in terms of dog years, so he's now got like at least one full NHL season of coaching experience behind him, right? But because of all the managing that he had to do with all the injuries, maybe it counts more like a year and a half of coaching experience because he had to deal with so many different situations with having to individually manage, so many different players, and keep them engaged and everything else. And then just being able to kind of manage this like ever evolving thing that was happening. Right. So to me, again, tough year for him, but in the long run, I think it's going to pay out huge dividends for his development as a coach. And listen, like we all know what he brings, like the philosopher king of Montreal Canadiens coaches. Like his press conferences are so enlightening. I've always, guys like us, coach, we'll watch the press conference no matter what. But I'll tell you, I never missed any press conference from St. Louis. It's like must watch TV, right? Compared to, sometimes I might skip through if it's Michel Therrien or something. I might skip through a little bit, but Martin St. Louis, it's much must watch TV. So yeah, I think it's a great year for him. Are there little things here and there that you could criticize, like his bench management, game awareness, game awareness in terms of understanding when to kind of give players a little bit more, take away some ice time, goaltenders, like when to pull a goaltender, taking timeouts, like all those things, at points, you could maybe, kind of like be a little bit critical, but listen, you give the guy a mulligan, his development like is, right on track. I think we're, the Canadiens are going to definitely really benefit from the year, that experience that he had.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I think Martin Louis did a very good job overall. I don't want to go more deeper about him, about that. I just show by the potential of each one of the players. I don't see any player regress if you think about this. Everybody has stepped up their game and they become better. Is Martin St-Louis and the staff, the development coach, did a great job around every one of them. He said Montembeault could be dark, and H1 Caulfield is a one. Zuski 66 point. I can go all the way like this. You can see everyone have some kind of improvement. You have to give that, and then Martin St-Louis is he compete as a DNA inside of him. It's about win, 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 win. He don't care about the draft. He's also said at the end, he said we should do every game we play in the right way. and if you play the right way, everything will be fine. You're going to get rewards if you do the right thing. So that was Martin St. Louis. The most important for me, what I got from his press conference about him. And he said he's humble. The fact he want to learn more, he need to learn more. He need to adjust. And for him, what is really difficult for him was you have always to be ready for the next day. It's a long year, but for him, it's really where he need to adapt better, everything like that. But for me, he did a great job for what he got. And you think about 10, 12, 13, 14 players, 15 players did not have on the roster at some point. The train, like he mentioned, right, is always move forward, and he never stop at nowhere. He keep constantly pushing, and the way he motivate each one of them, it's pretty impressive. And secondly, everyone want to play for Martin St. Louis. That's the most important things I can recall. Like, when you said it stood out at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the show, that's what I think for me. Is every one of them, each player, always impressive by the way Martin St. Louis communicate with them, the way they teach to them, and the way to make the each one of them very important inside the organization Montreal Canadiens. So Montreal is in transformation. Montreal is a rebuilding. And as a fan, for me, we need to be patient and wait where they're going to go there. But you can celebrate too for the Ken Hughes 1 year anniversary, where they did an amazing, great job as a staff management. And everything they said 1 year ago, Marco, they did it. The staff management, the development player coaches, the scouting development, everything like that. They are more successful at the negative around the Ken Hughes job and the Jeff Gordon at the end of the day. So Martin said we play a big role, and he did it all year long for the Montreal Canadiens, and now we see what he's going to learn. But again, it's getting a little bit harder for him and for the team next year. The expectation the bar will be a little bit higher, and how he going to deal with the pressure all year long next year will be something he need to be. And he learned behind the mic he cannot be that way or act that way. So it's another process for him, and we have to give credit for Martin St. Louis at the end of the day.
Don't poke the bear, man. Like, I think it's smart of him, as the head coach, like he's really nice and polite with all the reporters, but once in a while he's got to shoot him that look, right? Like, if they ask him the same question 2-3 times, like he's got just a little bit of Tortorella in him, just enough to keep the reporters a bit nervous around him. And I don't think that's by accident. I think that's calculated on his part, right? Like he knows. Yeah. So I think it's a smart move. Like, I think he was very generous with the fans and the reporters this year. He sits down, he gives very thoughtful answers. But then when he sees that it's becoming ridiculous, he'll stab you in the face, right? With his eyeballs. And that's okay. Like that's, I think, the way that it needs to be done. I don't think it's disrespectful. He's giving a lot of himself in this job. I don't think anybody could accuse him of writing or, kind of like mailing it in this year. Like, my God, like he put a lot of hours and a lot of all his heart and soul. To me, the best quote from when they asked him, like, how, must be, how do you feel now that the season is over? Are you relieved? He's like, no, it's exactly the same. Like the feeling is exactly the same. If I lose in the Eastern Conference Finals, or if I'm eliminated in the regular season, c'est plate, I think was his word. C'est plate que c'est fini. And to me, that's what it is, right? Like, I love that quote.
I'm sorry about that. Just finishing, I just want you, because I follow, but sometimes I miss it. Did anybody ask a question about the fact, like, not how they hide this, but the way they don't open up more about the injuries condition for each player from the media? Did they talk about this or deeper?
Oh yeah, Kent Hughes got a little sensitive about this topic. So somebody pushed back, like they're like, okay, so because they had already addressed the whole thing about the medical staff and whether there's changes that needed to be done. And then somebody said, well, yeah, and what about more transparency with the media? Like we see Monahan walking around with a boot, and then he disappears for a month, and we don't hear anything. And Kent Hughes says something like, okay, well, sorry, do you mean transparency with other managers in the league as to what his status is? They're like, no, with the media. He's like, well, Okay, well, I at no time did managers in the league not know what was going on with Sean Monahan, right? So you could see he was addressing it. He's basically saying, you know what, like there's only so much that is proper to tell the media when it comes to injuries. And he had talked about this before with Monahan, right? Because one thing that we don't consider is player privacy too, right? Like maybe a player doesn't want their injury information. So it's not just kind of, oh, we want to share everything with the fans. Like sometimes the player might not want that to happen. And that's fair, I guess, right? But yeah, you could see that there was a definite kind of sore point there. He felt that it wasn't to their strategic advantage to have that share through the media before Kent Hughes could actually communicate directly with GM so that he could explain the nuances of the situation, right? Because you don't want, like, because then the other GM might not even answer the phone if they've seen a press report that Monahan is injured. They might not even take the call seriously. So Ken Hughes wanted to do that. So you could see it's definitely a sore point. It's something that they're sensitive about. Now, do I buy it 100%? No, but I think I think they still could be more transparent. We talked about this a lot during the season. In cases where it's obvious, that there's something going on, there's no reason to say, lower body injury when the guy's walking around with a cast on his foot. So I think there's kind of a middle ground there. But you could see Kent Hughes was a little out of all the topics, that was the one he was a bit more sensitive about when he was asked about it.
Yeah, absolutely about that. I agree with you about this. They learn from that, and I think overview for me, Montreal have a good first year, the rebuilding. If every time you see a team go forward and they move on with the performance overall, I think it'll be. I think consider this as a successful year for the Montreal Canadiens. Feeling about their expectation, only Joel Edmondson was, thinking to make the playoff, but the rest of people was all about the development as an individual player and as the team concept together. And Ken Hughes, I think he said, not only the players, but the coaches, the staff, and every one of them, and us, they learn and they get better at the end of the year. That's what the main goal of the Montreal Canadiens this year. And then you continue with that, their expectation will change next year. For everybody have the same kind of goal about at the end of the day. They're not targeting to finish at the bottom or the tanking wood. You can hear about that. They're going to go to another direction for next couple of years, for next season. So I think that'd be great. We want to welcome Mr. B in the house. Thanks to be with us. Google account is in the house. So go there. So another subject in the chat, guys, we appreciate a lot. We'll be back tonight at 9 o'clock. And a lot of people talk about Sakoski, talk about Hoffman, talk about Edmondson. That's what we're going to do this tonight. So I want to sharing two subjects today. First with Marco about the overview of the season on the staff and what happening. And then tonight we talk about more specific with Marco, with the NRTAP. What's the next move? What's now the next move with the Montreal Canadiens? So, and then we're going to talk about the playoffs. So I just want to sharing this, Marco, to be sure the people, because maybe they are thinking we ignore them. It's not we ignore them. We try to bring the most. And Marco is not a regular. It's only week. So every time we get him the morning, the Sunday, we want to get more information from him and ABC because he's check everything what's going on with the Montreal Canadiens. So glad to have you, Marcos. I'll be 29 episode together for the year. We don't predict what will be the next at BRUNCH, but we're going to get one at some point, maybe two, because the Montreal Canadiens is going to be the NHL draft. May 8th is coming, Marco. And so maybe the Sunday prior to that NHL draft, possible to looking and a little bit the information about the NHL draft, what's going on around the players could be select. We'll maybe have a good conversation about that. So the Sunday period. And then we can talk about what we're going to be at that one. At that moment, it could be round number 2, at the end of round number 2. For the NHL, so it'd be maybe appropriate to do that, and maybe bring Nick if he's available about that. So I don't know if you have anything to add about this. For the fact, for the people in the chat and the people for myself, we want to thank Marco for an amazing, great year. First time we did this together at BRUNCH Sunday Rendezvous. We expect possible if Marco is back to do it next year. I don't see the show will be eliminated. And again, we just want to say to you, Marco, thanks so much. We're grateful, thankful to having you aboard the Sunday morning. I know it take a time, family-wise, and of course your own time about that. But really appreciate for what you did for the show, and we really pleased having you with the team.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, Coach. It's so much fun doing this every Sunday. Happy to jump on, once in a while here. Like, feel free to text me if you want me to jump on in some evening shows as we move forward here into the playoffs, because I'm excited about the playoffs too. I'm not just a Habs guy. I'm a NHL guy. Like, I follow everything pretty close. So if happy to jump on, and I'll definitely be following along on your playoff coverage here as well. I'll definitely be doing my brackets. But yeah, it's been a great season. Like, again, like it's like we talked about, maybe not all the fans came along for the ride, but the really hardcore fans that understand the process. And, I thank everyone for joining us every Sunday. It's been a lot of fun, and look forward to this summer. It's going to be, like Coach said, the draft and lots of exciting stuff. It's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely about that. We thanks. We have a few people knock the door. We have Rudolph, the winner of the fantasy hockey from Hockey Nation. I'm sure he's in the house, so
Really?
thank you, Rudolph. And then we congrats you. We have Nicolas ask Jeff Gordon, il retire la Pittsburgh. No, Jeff Gordon, maybe he said again, he will not go nowhere. He's still with the Montreal Canadiens. So I think that's doing everybody. Larry Lavalley takes over. We have a lot of people. We want to thank every one of them, guys. About that, we appreciate a lot. And then, like we do at the end on the show, Mr. Marco, we only finish the show that way, and we want to hear from you. What are you looking for not next week, but possible maybe for the next couple of weeks of Montreal Canadiens, maybe the NHL draft lottery, maybe whatever you have in your mind, maybe sharing with you what you're looking for the Montreal Canadiens.
Coach, for sure, it's the draft lottery. That's absolutely circled on, like, the actual lottery itself. That's the first thing circled on the calendar. And then big question this summer is HUGO going to be able to liquidate some of these contracts? That's going to be the key thing. And the draft itself, right? Like, can we even get 60% the excitement that we had in the last draft? If so, then it's going to be awesome. It's going to be an exciting summer, and we'll be here on Hockey Nation Live to talk about it. And we all miss hockey during the summer, so I'm looking forward to continue talking about hockey over the summer.
Yeah, absolutely, Marco. We have a few people knock the door. Dory Funk, for the first time, I think, is in the chat with us at the last minute. So thanks so much to be with us. A lot of people, we would thanks. Great conversation from different people. It does make I always said, Marco, the chat make a show better. By the way, they communicate each one between each one. So sometimes we don't have to say anything. The ZEF step up, WST step up. We have other people step up, and we appreciate each one of you. Thanks to join the app BRUNCH, your Sunday rendezvous for another time. But before we leave, we want to thank everyone. And then we want to invite you, don't forget, guys, to click on the like and subscribe to the Hockey Nation show you've never been. Leave us some comments. Don't forget, we'll be back tonight at 9:00 p.m. In our tab for the Ad Nation Like Tonight show. People, so what do you do for the playoff? But we go on every single night. So follow us. We will be live at some point 7 o'clock, sometime 10 o'clock. But we try to figure out 3 teams, 4 teams we follow. We follow the Edmonton Oilers, the Colorado Avalanche, and on the Eastern, we follow, of course, the Devils, the Rangers series, and the Toronto and the Tampa Bay. They are the 2-1 we go to follow. Unfortunately, they play at the same time, so we cannot pick up or go to the best we can go from that one. So that's what we got tonight, Mr. Marco. Time for me to finishing my another video, guys. I got soaking wet on the weekend. I'm going to show this video the next couple of days. Follow me on my Frenchie and Thailand, my journey in Thailand. If you not subscribe, we reached 250 subscribers in the last couple of days, and we get about another. My video is about 7,000 viewers for my condominium. So I can't wait to bring more on the table what we do in Thailand. Marco, it was a pleasure to work with you. You're an amazing co-host. Everybody talking positively about you in the chat, so maybe you can reviewing all the comments at the bottom. So we appreciate that. We wish you an amazing, great rest of your day, everybody. I can wait to see you until the next time. And Marco, thanks so much again one more time.
Ouais, merci tout le monde. Belle fin de semaine. Attends.